So we go into this meeting, just put in context how tough this is going to be to decide whether to increase output from next month. Good morning.
Hi, Manus. Yes, OPEC's decision today on whether or not to increase oil output from next month is going to be a very close call. At last month's meeting, at the beginning of December, there was quite a lot of tension, but the outcome was pretty much as markets had expected. The cartel decided to increase production at the start of this month by 500,000 barrels a day. This time, there's a lot less certainty. Russia, one of OPEC Plus's de facto leaders, along with Saudi Arabia, they're keen to increase production, and it seems as if Moscow would very much like another hike of 500,000 barrels a day next month. The Saudis and the Algerians are being more hawkish. They're looking at the second wave of, this latest wave of coronavirus infections across the world. They're looking at oil demand being weak, and they seem to be much more cautious about another production boost next month.
What have the Saudis actually said? We've heard from the Russians saying they'd like to increase about 500,000 barrels, but have the Saudis come out saying they are markedly for one way or the other?
Hi, Anne-Marie. In public, they haven't. They are sort of keeping their thoughts under the radar for the moment and just discussing them in private with other OPEC Plus members, but they have pointed out that the demand outlook is very uncertain at the moment because of these new coronavirus infections. Publicly, they're still keeping their cards quite close to their chest. But it seems as if the Saudis are more willing to sort of argue for no increase than they were a few weeks ago. That's pretty certain.
Paul, we caught up with Bob McNally a little bit earlier on. We were talking about the Iran risks. He says there is a risk of red line crossing kinetic strikes. So in other words, not all-out war, but perhaps an escalation, as it were, of full power, which is not in the price. But we've seen these skirmishes before. How much is that permeating around the market?
Well, that's probably the one thing that analysts and traders think could actually push the oil price up much at the moment. Most of them seem to think that the risks are to the downside because of the virus. But the one thing that could push it the other way is some kind of conflict in the Persian Gulf involving Iran. That doesn't seem to be fully priced in by any measure. It's still seen as unlikely by the market, but there is quite a bit of nervousness among traders and analysts, especially in the next 16 days in the run up to Joe Biden assuming the U.S. presidency. There are some people who think that there is a chance that the U.S. might try to escalate things with Iran, even if it's only a small chance. If something like that did happen, that would certainly cause havoc in oil markets in the short term, at least.
I wanted to also just ask you quickly about the existing inventory overhang, Paul. How much do you think this matters to OPEC today when they meet?
This is a big issue for the group, and from what we can tell, it was one of the reasons why the Joint Technical Committee meeting yesterday went on for so long. Usually, those are usually formalities that are over quite quickly, but yesterday's went on for a while, and apparently inventories was one of the big things that they were talking about. OPEC Plus is trying to figure out what would happen to inventories over the next few months if they do decide to increase production vis-a-vis remaining at January's levels into February. What OPEC would like to do is certainly not see inventories increase, because that would obviously put downward pressure on the oil prices. At the very least, it wants to see inventories stable, if not see them continue to decline steadily in the coming months.